بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك صوت عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. These days I'm really beginning to enjoy speaking, eating and drinking because I'm saved from this gimmick you have to wear around your face that you only do so you don't have to pay a $200 infringement. So anyway, our discussion tonight revolves around what we call ta'yir. If we look at the word ta'yir and its meaning, basically means to shame somebody or to condemn someone or to hold them in contempt. Okay? So if I reproach someone, all these meanings, or as I mentioned, the discussion tonight was being scornful. Someone that is scornful is someone that mocks. When they scorn someone, they jeer them, they look down upon them. You know, the people that say, Mish mithlna nahna, not like us. The one that refers to other people as lay people, as plebs, as peons, as peasants, as serfs, and we're the other people. To have that within you. But as an introduction, I ask you, what is it that causes one or causes a person to conceal their dark side? What is it that causes us to hide what we do wrong? Whatever it is we've done wrong, whether today, the day before, the week before, whatever it is what we do, what causes us to conceal it? Obviously, I'm talking about the general people, the intelligent people, the reasonable people, the sane people. But most people these days, they'll just put it on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. Literally, people take photos of what they had for dinner. Some people even take photo of where that dinner went. And literally, they can put it up and it's become normal. People are so shameful that they will commit a sin. And so we're talking about some people. They're only a small percentage. Trust me. If everyone was doing it, it would be normal about it. We'd all be showing what we were doing on the weekend and we would care less. But what is it that causes us to conceal and hide our dark side of the wrong things we do? It is without a doubt that it is the shame and of doing it and the fear of being disgraced and shamed by others. To be humiliated and looked down upon that by others. We want to belong to everyone else. I enter a masjid, I want everyone to accept me. Have you ever seen some people that they're real chameleons in life? They'll come to an Islamic center and they're very religious. They'll sit there, they'll do sujood during the aqamel, cry, weep. And then when he hangs out with gangsters, he becomes a gangster. When he hangs out with people that are clubbing, he'll go clubbing. Everyone, he's, as we say in Lebanese, Edam ma'al awadam wa azhar ma'al zahran. So whichever people he's with, he just adapts. But people are ashamed in general, so they conceal this. Nobody likes to be reproached. Nobody likes for people to put them down. Nobody likes for people to humiliate them. If you take a look at anything that Allah forbids, place it upon yourself and you'll know why. Someone might come and say they're selling stolen goods. And he's selling stolen goods and you say, listen, you shouldn't sell stolen goods. And they'll say, why not? you turn around and say, how would you like if someone stole your things and sold them? They'll say, that'd be terrible. So when I apply it on myself, it's terrible. You know? Don't kill. Why? How would you like someone to kill you? Don't do this. How would you like it to happen to you? This is when it becomes applicable. This is when we worry about it. Now, what is the importance of not being condemning, not reproaching people, not shaming people? Al-Khidr, you know, when you hear the story of Khidr and Musa, generally we get those 3 lessons that I mentioned in the Quran. But there are other things that Al-Khidr says to Musa. Of the things he says to Musa, and we need to pay attention, because Allah Azza wa Jal says he has alam ladunni وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. Allah has given him special knowledge. He says to Musa, يَا ابْنَ عَمْرَان لَا تُعَيِّرَنَّ أَحَدًا. He says, do not ever reproach or condemn or shame anybody. Then he says, لا تعيرن عفوا أحدا بخطيئة. Do not reproach them for a mistake they do. Do not say this guy does this or this guy. You know, this is John, my friend, he's a thief. You know? Do not sit there, oh, this guy's what's it called? A liar, or this guy. Bring out something in public and shame them like this. Then he says to him, وَأَبْكِي عَلَى خَطِيئَتِكَ. Not only don't you reproach anyone, but cry over your mistakes. This has got to do with what? A guideline we've always been given. مَنْ شَغَلَ فِي عُيُوبِهِ. Whoever is preoccupied with their own shortcomings or their own faults, and شَغَلَ عَنْ عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ. If I'm too worried about what I'm doing wrong, what I think about other people? Honest, if you sat there and listed all the things you do wrong, this is what's beautiful about Arafah. You know, sometimes we tell people in Arafah, get up, and it's mustahab in Arafah for you to admit all the wrong you've done. Honestly, you can't, if you want to get up and talk about all the wrong you've done, in Arafah, you will never finish. You'll never ever finish. If you want to talk about the wrong things you've done in your life, you'll never finish. Some people say, what wrong do I do? That's right, that's a problem. That's your first wrong. The fact you think you're perfect. That's the first mistake you have. The fact you think I do nothing wrong. Go through. You want to know what you do wrong? Ask somebody else. Tell them, what do you see that I do wrong? Not so when they reproach you, you reproach them. Now, why do people condemn? Because they see themselves holier than others. That's why I said they'll say these, like these people. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, "Man ayyara akhahu bi dhanbin qad taba min lam yamut hatta ya'malah." That whoever condemns their fellow brother for a sin that they have repented for. See, we're not talking about people, like someone's a drug dealer. Yeah, they're a drug dealer. You're not shaming them, you know, because he's out on the street every morning, you know, and he's handing out and selling drugs. This is not someone you're shaming. This is someone that does it openly. But let's say someone used to deal drugs and has gone straight, has become religious. You're not supposed to say, oh, this is my friend Bob. He used to sell crack. You know? You don't shame them that this guy used to do this. So if I shame them, the Prophet says that I will not die until I do the same thing. I will not die until I do the same thing. In fact, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, لا تبدي الشماتة لأخيك فيرحمه الله ويسيرها بك. So, not only, he says, do not shame your brother. He says, because Allah will forgive them. and then he'll make you fall into that sin. When you sit there and bring it out, then it'll make you become like this. Then he says, من شمت بمصيبة نزلت بأخيه لم يخرج من الدنيا حتى يفتتن. That whoever, then he mentions it again, whoever gloats over an affliction that has befallen their brother, they will not leave this world until they are tried like the brother was tried. I remember a story happened to me when I was 22 years old. It was, and I've told this story to a lot of people. I was watching television and I had got back. I was actually in Lebanon. I had just arrived. And it was about several weeks after I arrived, and Israel left the occupied land. They left South Lebanon. And then Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah got up and gave a speech. You know what he said? He said, no one is allowed to touch a hair on any of the collaborators. Not even a hair on their head. On any amil, you cannot touch a hair on the head. So it's 22, you know, you're a professor. You're the king of the world. You actually teach people. You know everything, you know, or you think. So there I was sitting and I said, why is he saying that for? They're umala. They should kill them. That's what they should do. These people collaborated with the Zionist entity, with the enemy. They should be killed. And I was sitting with my father, may Allah have mercy on him and mercy on your deceased. He said to me something. He said, "Al-idu bil-may, mish mithl al-idu bil-nar." The one that his hand is in water is not like the one whose hand is in fire. So the one that's in a cool and comfortable position is not like the one within the problem. He said, if you were in South Lebanon during the Zionist occupation, which side would you have been with? And he said, and don't answer because you're not there to be tested. Very important point. We're quick to point our fingers and say, this person, burn him. That's where the mobs come from. Burn him on the stake. Do this, do that, do this, do that. How many of those people, when they call, what happens? When it's their turn, they say, hold on, give me a chance. Is that what we do? You tell them, listen, give me a chance, because there were people. Not everyone worked with the enemy because they wanted money. Not everyone worked with the enemy because of reasons that you and I think. Some were forced to work with the enemy. People say, how can you force someone to work with the enemy? How? How did Saddam make people work for him? One sheikh, just to give you an idea of how people work for the enemy. One Sunni sheikh, not a Shia sheikh. When the ulama were being taken in Najaf and arrested, he got up in Baghdad for khutbah al-Jum'ah, and he spoke against what Saddam is doing in khutbah al-Jum'ah. Imagine this, the courage of this. Who would do that? Who would do that? What kind of person? They're killing Shia. How many times have you heard of a Sunni sheikh where they're killing Shia will get up and give it? It's not common. It's not common. The opposite, you'll see it a lot. The Shia will defend the right of the Sunnah many times. But to see a Sunni, especially in Iraq, he got up and he spoke to defend the Shia. Do you know what Saddam did to this man? You think of the things that he would have done to him. They took his family into the masjid in front of the people, in front of him, and they violated the women in front of everyone. This is what they did. Something that you cannot even fathom. Something you cannot even think. When you want to talk about people, if you don't know, don't give your opinion. That's the lesson I was learning at 22. There are people that still talk like this in their old age. They still try and be wise. They want to reproach and condemn others. The other bad thing about this is, number one, you don't give the person a chance to repent when you condemn them and shame them. Secondly, you make a sin trivial. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam says, "Man adha'a fahishatan kana kamubtadi'aha." Whoever exposes or announces someone's abominable act. Fahisha is not just any normal act. Fahisha is generally associated with what act? Fornication or adultery. He says if someone announces or exposes someone's act, this fornication or adultery, the Prophet says, Kana kamubtadi'aha. So they are like the one that initiated the act. They're not different to the one that did the act, the one that initiated the original act. Because what are they doing? They're making it a sunnah. They're announcing it for the public. وَمَنْ عَيَّرَ مُؤْمِنًا بِشَيْءٍ لَمْ يَمُتْ حَتَّى يَرْكَبَهَا. That's what we said before. And whoever shames someone, they will not die until they do what this person they shamed did. They'll become guilty of the same action themselves. لحد وين? To what extent? To what extent can I do this? There's a hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam says, إذا زنت خادم أحدكم. So here it's talking about a female servant, the zanat, even though it says khadim. Hala will explain that another word why there's the feminine state instead of the masculine state. If a servant, meaning is to commit fornication, imagine that. Because imagine, firstly, this is a servant to begin with, fornicates. He says, فَلْيَجْلِدُهَا الْحَدْ وَلَا يُعَيِّرُهَا. طبعا in an Islamic state with Islamic law, fornication is what? It's met with what? With what? They beat them. If someone fornicates, when we're saying fornicate, unmarried person fornicates, not a married. Married is a different story. If a unmarried person fornicates, they get how many? They get 100 strikes in an Islamic state. They are lashed 100 times. طبعا 100 times we don't mean like the cat o' nine tails back in early Australia, where they used to, you've ever heard the saying, there's not enough room to swing a cat here? People think it's an actual cat. No, it's a cat o' nine tail, where they used to actually need as much room as they can to smash the person. That thing nearly went too. To smash the person, whereas in Islam, how does the punishment is met with a book under your arm, and they're struck. With that, they're lashed because it has to be a punishment. It has to be set. The punishment has to exist in the Islamic state. He says you punish her, but what? لا يعيرها. Don't shame her. These days people are acting like, who's the author of The Scarlet Letter? Has anyone ever heard of that book? Did anyone study that book at school, The Scarlet Letter? The Scarlet Letter was about a woman. Her husband wasn't there, and she became pregnant, and she was seeing the local priest. And she didn't want to expose him because he's a priest. She doesn't want to let everyone know what he's done, so she wears the burden of this, and they make her wear a scarlet letter A on her clothing to suggest that she's an adulteress. So wherever she walks, they shame her. It's amazing people can do this. You know, when the people came up to Jesus, if you read in the Bible, and they brought an adulteress, and they said, Lord, Lord, this woman is an adulteress. Do you still stand by the law of Moses that we have to stone her? You know, do we stone her like the law of Moses? So Jesus did not say, I'm against the law of Moses. What did he say? The famous quote, let he that is without sin cast the first stone. Not he without sin, he's not asking for a ma'soom. No. This is what a lot of people don't understand. He's asking amongst the people, who of you has not committed fornication? Let them stone her. Do you know how many of them were left? Read the story. Not a single person, they all left. People love to condemn. People love to point fingers at everybody they see. It's so bad here. Why? Because this is a servant, and the Prophet says, do not ayirah. Do not shame her. Imagine it's your wife. These people, today it's become a thing. If someone suspects their wife of being deceitful, they'll get a private investigator to follow her. I tell people simple. The day you have to pick up your wife's phone because you don't trust her, she shouldn't be your wife. The moment you don't trust her, what are you still doing there? You don't trust being with her, why are you with her? There's trust in a relationship. He sends a PI, this PI follows her. This story happens often. And then you hear the story, the guy will call you and say, what? He'll say, I have footage of the video. So what are you going to do? Sell it for $29.95? Do you want your wife to become Kim Kardashian? Do you want to make her famous? What the hell are you going to do with this footage? What do you want with this footage? You want to shame her? You want to expose her? She's the mother of your children. You want to expose her to the public. So when your daughters want to get married, people say, oh, I'm going to marry the daughter of a so-and-so. Is that what you want? You're not happy with her, you divorce her? I don't want to be with her, I divorce her? I don't shame her and expose her to the public. Why is it we feel we can shame and expose everybody? Even when you look at the physical punishment that is applicable in an Islamic government, it's applicable in an Islamic government as a physical punishment. However, the psychological punishment is not. Did you know that? The psychological punishment is not. Do you think, let me tell you something. You know when you watch people mock their enemy, this is so un-Islamic. Take a look everywhere in history and find me an Islamic example by a prophet or an imam where they mock their enemy. You know what I mean by mock them? Where they get prisoners and they drag them through the streets. They parade them and say, we've defeated these people. Have one way. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam conquered Mecca, could you imagine Mecca, al-Qura? Mecca was the city and the central of idolatry. They had their idols there. They were proud, the Meccan chiefs. They were proud of their heritage and their idol worship. And then when Rasulullah achieved the conquest of Mecca and defeated the chiefs of Mecca, did he do like Julius Caesar and parade Pompeii? Remember Julius Caesar paraded Pompeii through the streets? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ruhi fida, he lowered his head so he was walking, or near the head, beneath the saddle of the horse, so he couldn't look at the faces of the vanquished. He didn't want to gloat. He didn't want to look at them. He didn't want to gloat when he was looking at them. And then he said, what should I do with you? And they said, Akhun Kareem wa ibn Akhin Kareem. You are a forgiving, kind man, brother, and you are a kind cousin. This is what they said. And he said, فَذْهَبُوا أَنْتُمُ الطُّلَقَ. Go, you are all emancipated. You're all freed. He freed them. You want to say you've repented? However, this is how we dealt with them. But if they would turn back and come back, the Prophet then will put them on show. Do you understand what I mean? When you ask forgiveness, yes, I forgive you. But if they come back and they come and say, for example, that I was the first to accept Islam, hold it there. You're one of the tulaka. What's brought you back? Just be quiet and lay low for the rest of your life. Don't come through and try and come from above. But he wouldn't humiliate them and shame them until they want to come and show something otherwise. This is why the case of, for example, say someone's a sexual predator. He's different to someone. So you tell people, for example, say you know a con man, someone that goes into business with people and rips them. You have to expose this person. You don't go into business, this guy's a thief. Don't go into business with him. This is not someone you're shaming. This is someone you're protecting the public from. Someone's a sexual predator. Yes, they need to be shown. This person needs to be exposed because they can affect the public. They can affect the public. But not someone that commits a sin. Someone that بيعتدي على الآخرين, that affects others. So anyway, you can't even reciprocate what others do. If someone shames you, you can't shame them. Someone scorns you, you can't scorn them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, إن عيرك أخوك المسلم بما يعلم فيك فلا تعيره بما تعلم فيه. Firstly, before we look at the ta'yir, condemning another person or shaming another person, بما يعلم فيك, that your brother is shaming you for something that he knows. Not something he's making up. Something that is. The Messenger of Allah says, do not shame him for something you know about them. You know, sometimes some people say, he exposed my secret, I'm going to expose his secrets. Where did he come up with this? Why? He says, يَكُونُ لَكَ أَجْرًا وَعَلَيْهِ إِثْمًا. You're going to get rewarded for him doing this, and he will incur a sin, transgression. You have a reward, he has a vice that's been given to him before this. The other thing that petrifies, that should scare every individual, is the end of the people that shame others. Al-Imam al-Baqir salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says, ما من إنسان يطعن في عين مؤمن إلا مات بشر ميتة. Before I continue the rest of the hadith, he says anybody who discredits, who reproaches, using all these words for you to understand, who shames, who scorns, who taunts, who jeers, who mocks, who condemns, who holds someone in contempt. Anyone that does this or looks at them with disdain. What's the thing? He says, illa, if someone does this, mata bi sharri mita, that they will die a most evil death. A most evil death. Listen to the words he says after that. وَكَانَ قَمِنَ أَنْ لَا يَرْجِعَ إِلَى خَيْرٍ. This is the scary thing. وَكَانَ قَمِنَ. That means that they become deserving, they become eligible not to die a good death the moment they do this. They have eligibility. They've got to fix things up for them to lose this eligibility. You meet those people, they sit down and they will shame everybody. Sit down and go, all the girls in our community, they're all this. How many of these people do you meet every day? They'll sit there, they'll shame everyone, and they talk and talk and talk and talk. Guarantee he'll end up in Oxford Street before he dies or something like that. This guy will get exposed in the worst possible way. And I've seen it. I'm telling you, I've seen it from experience. I've seen people. They dishonor young girls. They'll say, this girl's that, this girl's that, this girl's that. And then you see how they waste before they die. They waste. They become the scum of society before they die. They become a degenerate. They become so decadent. They become so valueless that Oscar the Grouch would be ashamed to finish the way they finish. That's what they become. Because all they do is sit and point at people. This guy was sick, this guy's this guy's that. You know? When he walks, he must think of himself as being so regal. You know? He must actually imagine a red carpet beneath his feet when he walks. I'm so awesome. This is the way that they must. This could very well be a point of no return for some. Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, Man annab mu'minan annabahu Allah fi dunya wal akhir. If someone reviles a believer, Allah will revile him in this world and in the next. That's why when we do dua, we say, وَلَا تَخْزِنَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Do you imagine your life? Can you imagine right now, just think about this, something you should cry about. Do you imagine they put a full screen TV to expose all the evil you've done on the Day of Judgment? And the people are witnessing it are who? Everyone that you know. Amongst them, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Would you imagine Allah exposes you in front of the Prophet? Something that will break your heart. Do you know there are some sins, this is the mercy of God, there are some sins Allah conceals the eyes of even the angels that take down your account. There's sins you commit that Allah conceals your eyes, does not let them see what you're doing. We call Allah Ya Sattar al-Uyub. Allah conceals things that we do. You know, there's one of the books they once wrote about, I don't know if you've ever heard of a man, they've written books about him. His name is Sheikh what? I can't remember. Sheikh al-Khayyat, what was his first name? Who remembers it? Rajab Ali. Ahsan. Sheikh Rajab Ali al-Khayyat. Do you know one of the stories they say about this man? I've heard from a lot of people about how righteous he was. He was a mu'min. I know they give him other titles, but he was a mu'min, not the other title. He was a mu'min and a muttaqi. So much so that people would be ashamed if he had a bad opinion of him. One day he's walking with another man. The man's saying the story. He said, I'm walking with him. And he turned around and looked at me and said, what did you just say? And he said, what? He said, what did you just say? He said, I said, Ya Sattar al-Uyub. Oh Allah, cover my deficiencies. Sheikh Rajab Ali Khayyat said, you said something in my head just got extinguished. That apparently the Sheikh had heard something about this man. Allah removed this. When you say Ya Sattar al-Uyub, Allah removes it from people's heads. But I'm someone that exposes people. Allah keeps giving you chances because He is so merciful. Then eventually He says, this person doesn't care. He wants to expose people. This person wants to put everybody online. I'll show. You know, there's people. Yeah, I get a lot of these. They have a problem. A woman has a problem with her husband. Husband has a problem with his wife. And I'll sit there and they've got data on them. And I want to show you the whole file. I say, delete all this. So why? Ya Sattar al-Uyub. You were married. There's secrecy between you. Unless he's put it on publicly, he doesn't care. You know, he's put it up on Facebook. He's abused your Facebook here. He's made it public. But I'm saying there's private messages between you. Or some people that sit there, these are the scum of society. And the people that sit there and secretly record others when they speak. Or secretly film others. Like, you gotta be so petty. You gotta be so petty to do something like that. You really gotta be like something that's not even considered to be a living thing if you sit there and double-cross people. Secretly, connivingly record them to expose them. In fact, when I mentioned before about people that are being taken, have you ever seen when someone's been condemned and they're taken for the death penalty? What do people say? Have you ever seen when someone's been taken death penalty? Have you heard what people are saying as they're being taken? Don't watch the movies. Watch when you see real life death penalty. What do people say? Everyone's quiet. Have you noticed? Because it's death. Death's about to take place. People are quiet. This person's about to be killed. They're about to be brought to justice. You cannot humiliate them. You cannot, as I mentioned before, scorn them at this point. This point, they have their right for that last moment of dignity, even though they've come to death. Not because this person's sentenced to death, ma'ad andu haq. This is one of the things we really fight about when we talk about Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is what? Fundamental rights. No one that is killed, even a sheep, is not given water before it's killed. Not even a sheep. A fundamental right of an animal. The grandson of the Prophet was not even given that before he was killed. A right of an animal. And this is what makes it so tragic. The massacre of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is so tragic that even this, and احتج عليهم, he told them that my liver has dried up, it's carved from my thirst. Let them know. Even the infant wasn't given water. Something so simple that they weren't given this right. And even, when you sit and you listen to the majlis, the musibah of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, you're not told everything. We don't know everything. Even when we talk about the story of Fatima alayhi salam, a lot of the times people go, did they do this? I said, listen, you don't even know what they did. There are things we don't even know. There are things that weren't even narrated. When Fatima alayhi salam, just think about this. When she says, Subbat alayya masaib, that all the calamities that befell me, had they been poured upon the days, not the day, the days, all of the days would have become nights. Something you cannot even fathom. And the Imams, the Ma'sumin, they don't use hyperbole. They don't augment their statements. There's no exaggeration there. She's saying something that you need to, when you hear the hadith that when Abu Bakr and Umar came to talk to Fatima in the last days, this is Sunni narrations, that she wouldn't even look at them. Why not? What is it that they could have done that she wouldn't even look at them? What could they have done to Ahlul Bayt alayhi wasalam? This is something for people that is not even mentioned. Now, even when it comes to advising somebody, what are we told to do? You want to advise someone, what do? Take them aside. The worst thing you can do is advise people publicly. Someone does something wrong, you excuse me, can I have a word with you aside? And then you tell them. Not in front of everyone so you look like you know everything. And this person doesn't know anything. And to put them down. In fact, you haven't helped them there. You've humiliated them. Now this is why Allah hates this act so much. What does He do? He's willing to let you feel what you do to the other believer. In fact, He's willing to humiliate you in this world and in the next for doing it to another believer. Why? You think about it. When Allah talks about ghiba, backbiting, He says it's like eating the flesh of your brother while he is dead. Why does He say this? Because a believer has dignity even when they die. The body of the believer is dignified. Imagine when they're alive. They have dignity. They have karamtu. They are people that are dignified. They are people that are honored. How can I bring them back? Now, just to round up things, I'll start off with this. What makes us think? I'm talking about myself the whole time. What makes me think? What act have I done that makes me think I can shame others? What act have I done? Let us consider ourselves. We are given a royal banquet by Allah Azza wa Jalla. We don't even return the bones. Our relationship with God. خيرك إلينا ناصل وشرنا إليك صاعد. Allah Azza wa Jalla gives and He gives and He gives. What do we give in return? What can we give in return? In fact, Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam, what's he saying? You listen to Dua Abi Hamza. He says, وَمَا قَدْرُ أَعْمَالِنَا فِي جَنْبِ نَعْمِكَ. How can I compare my actions when I look at your favors upon me. وكيف نستكثر أعمالا نقابل بها كرمك. How do I look at my actions as being great in number when what have I got in blessings from you? Could you imagine like someone gives you wealth, gives you health, and they give you and they give you and they give you and they give you and they give you. And the best that you can give them in return is what? Is thanking them, and that only benefits you. You can't give in return. That's the thing. You want to know how much you can't give in return to God? Just want to put you in your position? Go look at Munajat al-Dhakirin for Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein. Have you ever read this Munajat? The Munajat's the Imam talking to God. It's not just anything, it's their whispered prayers. It's a moment between solace where you sit with Allah Azza wa Jalla and you speak directly to God. Do you know what he says in Dua al-Munajat? He says, oh Allah, had it not been for the fact that you've ordered me to remember you, you've commanded me to remember you, I've removed you from my memory. Because, in other words, I'm not even worthy to mention you. I'm not, the Imam's saying, if the Imam's not worthy, who are you and I? He says, I'm not even. He said, I would remove you, but you have ordered me to remove you. Who am I? What have I brought to the table? What am I? You know, as we say in Arabic, Shu mahalli bil a'rab. Where am I in this whole equation? Where am I in the formula? Then he says, in the dua, وَدَعَوْنَاكِ in dua bi Hamza, وَنَحْنُ نَرْجُو أَن تَسْتَجِيبَ. We ask Allah, do you know we're demanding? If you look at the dua, Allah, the Imams teach you to be demanding when you announce the dua. وَنَرْجُو, we hope that you answer our prayer. Even when we read dua, don't we say, Allahumma inni da'artani فاستجب لي كما وعدتني إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. When Hajj Allah, like we're the type of people in our dua, when we talk and we're told to do this, we're told to say this to God, that we are asking you like you have commanded us to, so answer us like you have promised, because you another, and also in dua bi Hamza, we say amartana bil ihsan, we say amarta, reject anyone from our doors. قد جئتك سائلا فلا تردني إلا بقضائه. I've come to ask you, do not turn me away from your door. To ask. He says, وَدَعَوْنَاكَ وَنَحْنُ نَرْجُو أَن تَسْمَعَ فَحَقِّقْ رَجَاءَنَا. فَحَقِّقْ رَجَاءَنَا. We ask you, make it a reality. What I hope is, why? فَحَجَاءَنَا مَوْلَانَا فَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا نَسْتَوْجِبُ بِأَحْمَدٍ. Why? Because we know what we do. We know exactly what we deserve. Do you know what you know? Every one of you should know that everyone is worthy of the fire of hell. For even the slightest sin, we know what we're worthy of, but we're holding on to.